Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, we have a lot of ground to cover. So without further ado, I am going to plunge right in. But my first port of call, so to speak, is going to be from Carol Thomas, who is one of many people who said, "Your roses are beautiful." They are, aren't they? They were done by Brandon, who has a flower shop in Worthing called Flowers 4, numeral 4, and then the website says Flowers for Worthing. So anybody who lives nearby, he is an absolute genius with flowers. He used to do stuff for Vivienne Westwood. That should give you some idea of what an artist he is. Aren't they beautiful? We had a wedding here, and the couple could not have been nicer. Absolutely lovely couple. The bride had 3 of the most beautifully mannered and delightful young nephews I have ever had the pleasure of meeting. Those were left for me. Beautiful, no? So now, without further ado, we're going to plunge in with Helen Unsworth, who says, "Lady C, it seems CNN reported on Prince George prior to his birth. Will the royal baby look more like Prince William or Duchess Catherine?" CNN's Elizabeth Cohen reports. Then, wait for this. "It's very good that they're bringing in new genes," said Dr. Anand Sagar, a consultant in the Southwest Thames Regional Genetics Department at St. George's Hospital Medical School in London. "It freshens up the gene pool," he said. "The odds are the child will have darker skin colour than the royals might be used to. Catherine's commoner genes might lead to a somewhat darker skinned baby." He explained that the royals, this is in the article from CNN, that the royals were pretty pale. Catherine's complexion had a considerably more olive cast to it, and that the baby would more than likely be somewhere between the two. But he suspected the babies would veer towards Catherine's genetic pool because dark is dominant over light, he thought. Well, we now know what the 3 children look like. And may I make the point that Dr. Anand Sagar is Indian. My goodness. Meghan, do you see? It's perfectly normal for people to speculate what babies will look like, not only when they are interracial or biracial, but when they are uniracial. How are you going to cope now that you are being barraged with fat? This really is very tiresome of everybody, isn't it? All the people who aren't racist calling you out on your race baiting games. Kelly Vivar says, "I consider that woman a racist against the British people. She is stereotyping them as racists. So what? A person of colour can talk about race, but not white people?" Kelly Vivar, that seems to be the vibe. At least where the Meghans and the Scabies of this world are concerned. because I am wading my way through that sea of feces. And he comes out with the most racially obnoxious, racist remarks. He doesn't actually realize it when he does some of the things that he does, because he then backs up his racist remarks at one point with statistics, trying to prove that the royal household is racist. He's completely forgotten that the comparable is between the percentile and the percentage and the number. Buckingham Palace employ more people of colour per capita proportionately than exists in this country. I think that's the statistic he should have thought of when he was race baiting. But I'm not getting to that right yet, because I think rather than waste my time at this juncture on criticising a book that is so dire it is unbelievable, I prefer to address the issues that have arisen as a result of his publishing his race baiting exercise, really, in futility. And yes, I think Meghan Markle and Scabies are both race baiters. And I think Harry has been batting on that team. I think he's more modified than they are. But I think that both of them, and she's sneakier than he is, he being Scabies. But sneaky though she is a race baiter par excellence. And if she thinks I'm being unfair, there are options that she can take, like suing me. Snazzy Minx says, is this not obvious? Harry told us in the Oprah interview that the alleged conversation took place before big block capitals. They got married. This means that Markle married Harry knowing big block capitals, that there had been a conversation. Never spoke about it to any member of the royal family at the time. Stayed as a working royal for another 18 months. Never mentioning it. And then decides to bring it up on the Oprah interview in front of millions of people. Why are people missing this point? They talk about her writing a letter to Charles after the interview. Well, what about the 2 years she lived in the UK and saw him all the time? Why did she wait? Why go public when she has held this grievance for 2 years? I think we can say purportedly held the grievance for 2 years. Sorry to interject, but I think that clarifies your point even better. Why go public when she has held this purported grievance for 2 years? This was no racist grievance. This was a deliberate act of revenge. Big block capitals. How obvious can it be? Yet no one seems to be saying this. My second point is this. The reason why they cannot say anything about Scobie and his trash fest is because they know that if they do, then Scobie will see this as being thrown under the bus, and he will turn on them and reveal exactly, big block capitals, what they told him, when and where, and they will be blown out of the water. That is why they are keeping stum. Love to you as always, Lady C. Love to you too, snazzy minx. I wish I knew who you really were. This is brilliantly observed. You are 100% right. This is such a valid point. Are we truly to believe that Meghan overlooked all of this until it became financially convenient? Would she have overlooked it had she cared about it, had it been heartfelt, had it happened, had she actually had a true grouse? Of course she wouldn't have. Absolutely not. And you're absolutely right about scabies as well. They're caught between a rock and a hard place, because however they provided scabies with the information, they provided it. There are various speculative routes that they took to get from one vantage point to a terminus. Let's put it that way. And let's not forget, Doria was very happy to be accompanied by the king up at the church and to be escorted out of the church by him. Meghan was very prepared to share half the limelight with Charles. Of course, she didn't want to share the whole thing, because I'm not going to have that man ruin my... What do you do with a thing like Maria? Sound of music, here I come. The hills are alive with the sound of music. What do you do with a problem like Maria? She wanted her Maria moment, and she got it, well, half of it, because Charles, being very generous and trying to foster welcoming relations with his incoming daughter-in-law, was naive enough to think he was doing her a good turn by offering. And I suppose, or maybe, who knows, maybe Meghan and Doria were truly wonderful and really so noble that they tolerated this racist man in their presence. I mean, there we were thinking Doria was so dignified. She wasn't dignified. She was being noble. She was allowing this man who her daughter was distressed by his racist comments. She was being noble and allowing him to put his filthy claws on her spectacularly sweet and sensitive honey-coloured skin, as Meghan would put it. I suppose that's the scenario we're supposed to be believing, because that's in fact an underlying message that is being given here, that if this conversation took place at all, according to Harry, and Harry's the one who it is supposed to have taken place with, and to whom the comments were addressed, it took place before the wedding, and Doria allows this man who is concerned about her future grandchild's skin colour to escort her out of the church. My goodness, whoa, how big of her! And Meghan allows him to walk her down the aisle. I mean, how big of her! Oh. Then in Netflix, there are Doria and Meghan pushing the race card. I'm going to point out something that is well known generally by putting the words not in my mouth, but reading out Betty Smith's comment. Because the beautiful thing I have to say about our community is how intelligent, rational, decent, civilized, well-mannered, and well-considered it is. You have no idea the breadth and depth of awareness you have brought to me with many of your comments. And Betty Smith says, when Meghan's dad continued to do the lighting in her school play, even when she didn't get the part, she moved out of his house. That's how spiteful and angry she got. Yes, that's correct. Meghan tried to get her father to withdraw from the assistance he was giving the school drama section when she didn't get the role she demanded and required and felt was her due. So she threatened him, and when he refused to behave as dishonorably, as she was requiring him to do, she flounced out of the house. Charming. I am told that Meghan has always been spiteful, and when she's crossed, she has cold rage. She has the rage of a true antisocial being. Her rage is not social, it is antisocial. She was like that as a little girl, she was like that as a teenager, and she is like that as a middle-aged woman in her 40s. You know, Meghan hasn't ever heard the adage, revenge is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. Nor has she ever heard the other adage. When you dig a grave for your enemy, remember you are digging it for yourself as well. Oh dear, oh dear. The rage of the thwarted antisocial personality. Cocop says, hello, Lady C. The Harkles and their sycophants are now claiming that Meghan's mother, Doria, was ignored by the royals and not made to feel welcome during her pre-wedding visits to London. Lady C, is this true? Well, my understanding is that she was asked repeatedly by various members of the family to attend things, including William and Catherine. Remember Catherine? Catherine, who, amid scabies, has played the race card in her lap. Every time Doria was supposed to show up, somehow at the last minute, something happened and she couldn't show up. And evidently when she finally did show up, it was brief, and she was followed to the loo by Meghan, who was quite determined that nobody was ever going to get Doria on her own. I don't know why she was so worried. I mean, she made sure she kept her father away because she knew that he is very honest and forthright and would have been just spilling the beans. But I would have thought she had more confidence in Doria's ability to placed him in, shall we say, dangerous and hostile circumstances. After all, Doria is used to keeping her counsel, something that somebody with her history would have had to learn to do. Keep your head down, don't get into trouble, don't make anybody notice you, pretend as if nothing's happening. But develop the Doria's skill of the barbed comment, which Meghan has got from her mother. The zinger that hits home every time. Don't think Meghan didn't get it from somewhere. Meghan was very well coached by cracking good. Oh, this is cracking good. I tell you, nothing beats weed. Nothing. Well, actually, something does. It's got to be really cracking good to beat it. But, Aurora, shall Mommy take a leaf out of Doria's book and go outside and be smoking substances in the garden? You don't think that's a good idea? This sweet little darling is saying to me, Motty, there's no point in doing that because we have a castle in its own park and nobody can see you doing a Doria. Okay, Aurora. Shall we practice and take it outside on the road? After all, the Queen did say there was something of the street about Meghan. Artemis Juno says, I think the King is unaware of the power of social media and the speed that carries opinions to 4/4 of the globe in 24 hours. In 4 hours, my dear. He still writes letters by hand when he wishes to contact someone. Perhaps he does not understand how black people all over the world have instinctively rushed to believe her version of events, and how much this has damaged his standing in the Commonwealth and in African countries which are all obsessed with social media. We live in a different world now where old world courtesy has lost the battle with influencers and grifters. He needs different advice soon. Artemis Juno, he needs different advice now. I would suggest you turn those sentiments around and write them to the King via his private secretary. That's what I would suggest you do. Because every word you say is absolutely true. You know, at Buckingham Palace, they haven't yet cottoned on to the fact that the mainstream media is increasingly irrelevant in terms of public opinion where most of the world is concerned. They still seem to think if it's printed in a newspaper, it needs to be dealt with. If it's not printed in a newspaper, it can be ignored. Very out of touch they are. Very out of touch. It's not only the King, it's the whole culture. And I'll tell you, it's also the culture of the cognoscenti of all political persuasions. They think outside of their bubble, nothing counts. They're wrong. How do they think revolutions happen? Of course, most of them haven't read history. They haven't heard of history. They're not interested in history. They think, as Princess Anne would put it, they're going to reinvent the wheel. Well, they're not. Riverhouse says, in Netflix, they brushed off Archie after they said he has Meg's traits, but Lily has ginger. Meg said she has blue eyes. Who has the problem with colour? Well, we all know who has the problem with colour. Meghan has the problem with colour. Harry didn't have the problem with colour. Otherwise, he wouldn't be driving that vehicle. Let's put it that way. But Meghan has a problem with colour. Meghan is, I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Imitation of Life, in my opinion, it is so evocative of what Meghan is about, and what she has said confirms this observation. Meghan was severely conflicted about her racial identity. I don't know why she was so conflicted about it. She went to a school where many of the pupils were mixed race. None of them had the problems that she has articulated she possessed in terms of attitude and uncertainty and confusion. She was unique. Well, of course, she didn't really have those problems because nobody saw any hint of any of those problems until it suited her to go from being a passing white woman, and incidentally, even amid Scabies admits in his book Endgame that Meghan was a passing white. Interesting, no? Oh dear, oh dear. And there is, though, some evidence that Doria is the one who was feeding Meghan's negativity. That Doria is the one who was dropping and dripping poison in Meghan's air. And of course, she's continued to do it. Look at their performance on Netflix. And yes, like many of her type, Meghan was absolutely thrilled that Lily has blue eyes. Oh, not a drop of African. Well, at least, sorry, I didn't mean that. What I meant was not a hint of a drop of African, because of course she's 21.75% Nigerian, because I'm 43.5% Nigerian. Yes, I am. And Mom is 80. Oh dear. I don't know what they're barking. Girls, come back, come on. Something must have distracted them. I was saying, come back here now. Come on, come. Aurora, come. So, who has the problem with colour? Meghan. Self-hating woman of colour. Disdainful of those who are darker and envious of those who are without African heritage, in my not so humble view, going off her statements and conduct. Mandy Morning says, and this is relevant because amid Scabies and Meghan are two race baiters of the highest order. His book, I said it a bit earlier and I'm going to say it again, is a study in race baiting. Scobie, I don't know who Scobie is. Is that amid Scabies or is it amid the Scabies or is it omitting the truth, Scabies? Oh, you say Scobie, we'll go with that. Scobie can't even acknowledge his own heritage, preferring to call them Persian rather than Iranian, which may also explain his hatred for the royal family and the UK. He is no friend of Harry's either, but simply hides his disdain for him whilst making money from his ramblings and that of his wife. What you say is very interesting, but I'm going to tell you something because I'm friendly with certain of the old guard Iranians. Some royal, some imperial, some not. When they want to get across the fact that they have no colored blood, quote unquote, they say they are Persian because the Persians are Aryan. If they have mixed race backgrounds, that if they are part Indian, which the suggestion is that Amid Scabies' mother is actually not Persian, she is part Indian, Iranian, they then say Iranian. So when Scabies goes to the extent of saying his mother is Persian, he's actually saying his mother is white. That's what he's saying. If he said Iranian, his mother could be white or she could be of color. Interesting, no? Very interesting, I think. Lucy Waugh says, funny, just yesterday Methane was pictured in a parking lot with a diamond bracelet given to her by her racist father-in-law. Why would anyone wear a piece of jewelry by someone who was like that? Well, it's a Bentley and Skinner bracelet, and I know the owners of Bentley and Skinner, and I love their jewelry. It's a sweet little tennis bracelet. It's not the sort of thing, however, that you wear out to a parking lot for a photo op. Backgrid. I'm going to be traversing the parking lot at 10:15 this morning, and of course you're going to capture me without my knowing you're there, Mr. DeMille. I'm ready for my close-up, but I can't let anybody know. More publicity. Oh, Mr. DeMille, I haven't had publicity for the last 24 hours. I need a fix, Mr. DeMille. Of course, first of all, it's the height of vulgarity to wear diamond bracelets in a situation like that. It's just vulgar. It's so tacky. But I have to say, Meghan is a study in vulgarity. She is a study in tackiness. She is a study in tastelessness. She is a study in affectation. She is a study in what not to be. She always somehow manages, unless she is styled properly, to get things wrong. But of course, she's also getting them right, because she knows people are going to comment on the bracelet. They're going to say, is this a message? Or as that stupid, pathetic publication, the Daily Mail says, is it an olive branch? I mean, every few days now they're coming out with olive branch, olive branch, olive branch. I don't know why they just don't go to somewhere in Italy or Greece and just take over an olive grove. I mean, they're just so tiresome. Interesting, though, how attached Meghan is to jewellery that has been given to her by people she deplores and despises and looks down upon. Because don't tell me Meghan would not despise, deplore, and look down upon a true racist. I mean, she despised, deplored, and looked down upon her wonderful husband, Trevor Engelson, when she had had enough of use out of him and wanted to discard him. But she kept his bracelet, wears it to this day. So Meghan is one of those hustlers, noble creatures who she never gives back the present unless it's to give a message. What's going to happen to Diana's aquamarine ring? Oh. Girls, don't tell Motty. No. Lynn Taylor says, hi, Lady C. Is it possible that Meghan has accused the royal family of the R word because she could not face the facts about her inadequacy in the royal family? She was also aware that they would not respond to any accusations against them. So she had carte blanche to do and say whatever she wanted to once she had left the UK to live in America. That's a very interesting take on it. I think there might be an element of truth, but I think it is not the whole truth. Meghan always felt inadequate around truly substantial, well-bred, old world people. She could fake it as long as she felt she needed to advance herself, for instance, cultivating Millie Mackintosh. But she is rarely most comfortable with arrivistes because she is an arriviste. And she is an even more recent arriviste than the most recent of the recent arrivistes. And many of them, not all, some are absolutely lovely and unpretentious, down to earth and very good taste. But some of them are like Meghan, studies in pretentiousness, affectation and vulgarity. She's more comfortable with her own kind. She went out of her way to alienate Harry's friends. I think in part that is because she was uncomfortable amongst people who are genuinely well-bred and genuinely know how to behave and genuinely have positive attitudes. She felt inadequate. I'm sure of it. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I've more or less made this point in a more subtle way in my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story. But I think there was another element to it as well. Meghan came into this royal family knowing only too well that it was never going to work for her because, as her mother taught her very well, don't give the milk away free. And as she said to Jessica Mulrooney in Australia, I can't believe I'm doing all of this and not being paid, even though she was running up a bill of over £2 million in clothes alone. But we're not going to go there. My belief is, going off everything I know about Meghan as a character, as a personality, and my observation of other people of her ilk. She knew very well from the word go that she had no intention of staying in the royal family unless she could milk it in the opportunistic and exploitative way that she intended to do for her own personal enrichment. And when it became apparent that she couldn't do that, she went out of her way to antagonize Harry's friends. But she had already, from the early days, been alienating them by calling the shots. Meghan is a dominatrix. Meghan expects everything to go her way, and Meghan is an oppositional personality. She has to oppose. Harry's friends said, what on earth is this guy doing with this weirdo? I mean, this woman is just something weird. So, but that's partly her personality. She needs to rule the roost. She needs to dominate. She needs to be in control of her environment. That means you can't have the give and take of normal friendship, which Harry had had with friends of his. Not once Meghan came on the scene. Isla Fryer says, Harry is not a nice person and is accountable for many things. But I don't think he is always aware of the publicity stunts that Meghan is up to. I couldn't agree more. I don't think he knew about Meghan telling Oprah they were married 3 days before. I don't think he knew that she was going to do this awful curtsy for the Queen. I don't think he knew how much Meghan was involved in writing Endgames. I can see why he would not want to go against Meghan. She's very vicious. But he could come out and say he was unaware. I basically agree with you, Isla Fryer. I don't think that Harry is an innocent, but I think he is a dupe. And the fact that he is sometimes complicit doesn't mean he's always complicit. And it is quite clear that he was effectively ambushed in the Oprah interview, and Oprah kept in the two conflicting, contradictory, and varying accounts from the couple, which actually is to her credit. She didn't need to call them liars. They've called each other liars. Let's look at it like that. Just as how Tom Bradby couldn't say to Harry, come on, get off it, you idiot. Of course we all know that your wife called the royal family racist. He knew if he'd said that, the interview would never have aired. So I'm not saying we should cut Oprah total slack, but in this instance, I think she actually did the wise thing by keeping in the conflicting versions. And my understanding is that Harry is often taken aback by Meghan's claims and conduct. But you see, he loves it. He loves the drama. He loves the excitement. He loves the uncertainty, and he loves the fear. He is basically somebody who is a submissive. He is, of course, people who play S&M games intellectually, they switch position. but one of them is basically the more dominant and the other is the more submissive. Harry's the more submissive, but just so that she'll big him up and make him feel good about himself. And I'm a macho man. I am an alpha male. Every now and then, he's allowed to, I'm an alpha male. You've got to do this. Everybody's got to do that. Then, of course, he's completely ignored. Or, if she's planted it in his head, he runs with it and he thinks it's his idea. Poor Harry. I mean, it's really... I pity somebody who's that dumb. But I have sympathy for somebody who is that gullible. And he is, because remember, before Meghan, Harry was surrounded by yes men and yes women. Harry was very cosseted. He was very naive. He was very protected. Harry thought that snake was actually an enchantress. Cher from Tien says, Lady C, and to those who think Harry is harmless and just manipulated by Meghan, an American writer is promoting Harry as an advisor to our US military, with Meghan suggested to do videos that focus on military service people issues. I am not making this up. See the online article in Forbes magazine entitled, In Royal Reboot, Prince Harry and Meghan Have Future in Defense. It paints Harry's military experience in glowing terms and describes how he can help our military policy. The author feels now is the time for Harry to jump on and suggest changes. Also, he suggests Captain Harry might even come back into favour and then could run for the House of Commons. Seriously, you have to read this article to believe it. The author is Craig Hooper, and he is with the Themistocles Advisory Group. I've read the article. It's rubbish. It's a puff piece. It's trying to garner glory and buff up Harry and Meghan's by default image, so that all this negativity that has emanated from them and their constant publicity hounding of the world will possibly lead to something productive and constructive. I don't think so. But let me tell you something. Harry didn't have the brains to progress in the British Army. So if he's advising the American Army, you better all queue at the Chinese embassy for your Chinese visa from now. Because you want to be on the right side of the divide when that happens. Let me put it that way. Do you see how ridiculous the whole thing is? It's utter nonsense. Utter nonsense. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. I will be getting around to doing the book when things have quietened down a bit. But at this point, I see no reason to waste your time or my time. And don't buy the book. It is dreadful. Well, buy it if you're like Harry and a member of the Baron von Sacher-Masoch family. Let's put it that way. Okay? And on that note, I'll say God bless. And if you have enjoyed this, could you please like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell? Thank you so much. God bless. Bye-bye.